Do you think that the fentanyl traffickers, known as the cartels, I guess, I'm not exactly sure what that means. I'd like to ask you actually, but you keep reading and hearing that they have control of parts of the southwestern United States. First of all, what is a cartel? Who are they? Where are they from? And do you think that's true?
Well, the criminal cartels in Mexico, they are born out of the narcotics smuggling industry in Mexico, and they're powerful. Look, they're like a Fortune 500 company.
Yes.
They're just not a gang anymore, right? Yeah, Jalisco cartels they're in over 45 countries of the world, right? And not only are they responsible for moving narcotics in this country, they're currently in every major city in the United States, because not only are they smuggling the drugs in the United States, they're taking over the distribution within the United States, right? So again, and I said this at the RNC, and President Trump agrees with me. These criminal cartels have killed more Americans than every terrorist organization in the world combined, right?
And every war, more than the Second World War.
So that's why they need to be designated terrorist organizations and wiped off the face of the earth. And it's going to take the United States to do it. Mexico has failed to do it, even if they tried to do it. Bottom line is, much of the Mexican military, much of the Mexican law enforcement, much of the Mexican government is corrupt. That's just a fact.
Well, then why? Okay, so I noticed that the incoming administration just basically toppled the prime minister of Canada, who's a thoroughly evil person called Justin Trudeau, and just by threatening tariffs. They kind of fixed the Canada problem. Trump fixed it in about, 20 minutes. But how much more leverage do we have over Mexico? I mean, we're the entire economy of Mexico. Why don't we do that with Mexico?
Well, we are. President Trump has threatened tariffs, and the president seems to say she's going to help. We'll see if her actions match her words. But President Trump has a lot of power over Mexico. Look, the tariffs alone, Mexico needs us more than we need them, right? And look, I'm not saying every cop, every soldier, every politician in Mexico is corrupt, but many are. That's just a fact. When I was ICE director, we had vetted units we worked with. Law enforcement down there, we vetted them so we can work with them. But we didn't even tell the vetted units everything we know, because we just couldn't be sure, right? But President Trump has a lot of leverage. Remember, when I became board vigilante in 1984, one of my first assignments out of the academy was protecting a port of entry in Tecate, California, because we had a DEA agent that was tortured and murdered, Kiki Camarena. I think you remember.
I remember very well.
And they wouldn't help us to identify and turn over the people responsible. Ronald Reagan shut down a port of entries. And what, it took them 2 days? All of a sudden, we know who committed the crime. And so President Trump can obviously do that. He can end all the visas, end the tourist visas, the business visas. There's a lot of power he has over Mexico, and President Trump's willing to do whatever it takes to protect our sovereignty and protect this country, and he's ready to do it. He proved it the first time, when Remain in Mexico program. Mexico didn't want to do that. Third safe country agreements. Mexico didn't want to do that. They didn't want to put 10,000 military on their border. But President Trump threatened them with tariffs, and they came to the table.
There are so many nice Mexican people. I mean, most Mexican people I've met I really like, that we forget that the government's very anti-American, is not our ally in any sense. We spend all this energy being mad at Assad, who cares? And we live next to this country that's helping to kill hundreds of thousands of Americans every year. No one ever says anything about it. Don't you think it would be worth shifting some of that emotional energy and military resources to countries right next to us who are hurting us?
I'm 100% with you. And that's why I've been pushing to Mexico to come to the table and be accountable. It's against the law in Mexico to traffic in women and children, but they don't do anything about it. It's against the law in Mexico to transit through that country if you're from another country without a transit visa, but they allow it. I mean, look at the Beast, the big train that thousands of people came up every weekend. They didn't do anything until President Trump got in office and had him put a stop to it. I mean, but the good thing is a lot of countries are willing to come to the table right now. Mexico says they're going to. Let's see what they do. I'll be deeply involved in those conversations. Panama wants to come to the table and help the United States secure our border by shutting down the Darien Gap. This administration said they're going to do it. Secretary Mayorkas said he was going to do it. Panama never got any funding to do it. They never got anything done with this administration. They were coming to the table again. We will shut down the Darien Gap, but please help us. We will help them. Shutting the Darien Gap down would be a huge game changer on illegal migration to this country.
But again, given the economic leverage the United States has, that shouldn't take more than a weekend, right?
It's going to be pretty quick. I mean, we're going to come to the table what we need Mexico to do. Remain in Mexico program, a game changer. That needs to happen quickly. That was a game changer. Because after about 2 months, they stopped coming. They stopped coming because they knew they weren't being released into the United States to not show up in court. And even if they show up in court, no one's looking to remove them because on this administration, ICE can't arrest somebody for simply being illegally in the United States. Secretary Mayorkas has made that clear. They got to have a criminal conviction before ICE can even look at them, even though they're illegally here. So the remaining in Mexico is a game changer. They stopped coming. They stopped selling everything they had, giving the cartels every dollar they had to come to the United States to be released. When the remaining Mexico program came into place, they stopped coming. When they stopped coming, look at the lives that were saved. Look at the money that was saved. If someone's really escaping fear and persecution from their homeland, from their government, home government, if they're really escaping fear and persecution, they're going to be willing to wait in Mexico for the hearing. But most of them no.
But why would the U.S. take anybody why is it our job, given our appalling track record around the world of like trying to make things better, you make them worse because the world's super complicated. Why do we have an obligation to take anybody from anywhere ever? I don't really get, where does that come from?
Well, that was the genius of the Remain in Mexico program, right? Because President Trump, I remember sitting in the Oval Office one day, we're talking about this, and I was trying to explain to him, and he understood clearly what the whole situation on asylum is. I told him that if you look at the data, immigration court data, about 9 out of 10 people who claim asylum at our border never get relief from the U.S. government because they simply don't qualify or they don't show up in court. Then you look at the Homeland Security Life Cycle Report, a report that's put up by Homeland Security. For instance, family units. For those that were ordered removed, only 6% leave. So when I explained to President Trump, 9 out of 10 don't even have a valid claim, but when that 9 out of 10 gets ordered removed, 6% leave. He says, he didn't take him long to say, why the hell are we doing this?
Yeah.
So let's not let him in. Let's have a Remain in Mexico program. If you're really escaping fear and persecution, you wait in Mexico. If you win your case, which are very few, welcome to the United States. But if you don't win your case, we don't have to go find you. And we're not putting this message out of catch and release so people keep coming knowing they're going to be released in the United States. At the same time, knowing when they lose their case, no one's looking to remove them. That whole dynamic's going to change.
Yes.
Right? Because I've said, I've been real clear since the day President Trump appointed me, if you're in the country illegally, you got a problem, right? If we don't take the judge's order, immigration court, when you ordered you removed, he gets a deportation deportation order. If we don't execute those orders, then what the hell are we doing? Shut down the immigration court. Don't mean anything anymore. Take the border off the border because there's no consequences for entering this country illegally. We'll give you due process, but when you're ordered removed, you're going to be removed. Or if we don't, we send a message to the whole world. You can enter the country illegally, which is a crime. You can see a judge or not see a judge, get an order removal. No one's looking for you. And that's what the Democrats are doing in this administration. They have overwhelmed the system, releasing millions to this country. Immigration, the court dock is pushed back 7, maybe as much as 9 years, like in New York. By that time, when they get an order removal, they got 2 or 3 USC kids, right? Then everybody's complaining, you can't remove that guy. He's got 3 USC kids. When I was ICE director, I got calls from Republican senators. Why'd you remove that person? He has 2 USC children. Well, he didn't have 2 USC children enter country legally. He didn't have 2 USC children.
You got calls from Republican senators?
Oh, absolutely.
They're the worst.
And I said, well, what's my option? He had due process at great taxpayer expense. He was ordered removed by a federal judge. The option is just let him stay, because if we're going to do that, how many more do you want to stay? Then we got to send a clear message. We're a nation of laws. You get ordered removed, you're going to be removed. If not, we send a message to the whole world. Enter illegally, commit a crime, go have a U.S. citizen child, and you're out.
Is there any way to move millions of Haitians into rich white liberal neighborhoods? I mean it. The people who did this are rich white liberals in the United States who hate themselves and the country. And to punish it, they invited all these people illegally from failed countries. But they can't stand the idea of living near these people because they're racist. So why wouldn't you move every Haitian to Bethesda and Brookline and Aspen and Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket like today? Can we do that? I will donate money if we can do that.
We absolutely could. Look what the Martha's Vineyards did. They put them on there. Like, this whole thing. They
called the cops immediately because they're racist.
Governor Abbott done more to secure this border than anybody in this administration. Guy's great. DeSantis the same. Do you know who first came up with the idea of busing people to sanctuary cities? It was President Trump. I remember sitting in the Oval Office one time, and he said, why don't we do that? So we started putting plans together, but the Remain in Mexico program was such a game changer, We couldn't fill a bus up if we wanted to. So we beat the problem before we actually got to that. That was
the problem, though, is that the people doing it didn't have a precise enough understanding of rich white liberal culture, but I do. So they would bus them to New York, then they wind up in Midtown and Queens. Okay, none of the people who are doing this are affected by it. But I could give you a list of zip codes where, like, Tony Blinken lives and stuff like that, because I know that world. They need to be moved into the neighborhoods of the people who are calling you racist for wanting to have laws and borders. Like, they need to feel the effects of their own destruction. So just text me and I will send you the zip codes. I mean it too. Because what happened is they opened the borders and then all these people like moved to Jackson, Wyoming, to the least diverse zip codes in the country. They literally ran to the hills to get away from diversity.
I think we need to add to that, though, the senators and congressmen are pushing back on border security.
100%.
You know, moving illegal aliens right outside of the Vice President Kamala Harris's residence, that was a game changer too. So I think not only those who are well financed, how about the politicians who are pushing back against any form of enforcement of our border laws?
Well, that's why Bernie Sanders needs a ton of Haitians in Vermont, because it's blindingly white. It needs to change. I couldn't agree more. But just back to the cartel question, I don't know that much about it, but I keep hearing, I think, informed people say, man, you know, parts of New Mexico, Arizona, California, even Florida, Texas, you know, there is real control by these cartels in the way that they control Mexico. I mean, they're basically a state within a state with their own army and armored personnel carriers and tanks and, like, well, you know. Do you think that's real? Do you think they have that kind of beachhead here?
Oh, absolutely. As I said earlier, they're like a Fortune 500 company. They're well financed. They're diversified in their funding. And look, I've seen a lot of intelligence report. They have access to military grade weapons. They'll take the Mexican military on, the Mexican law enforcement. They do all the time. And it's just not my opinion. They have control, operational control of our southwest border. And I've talked to chief patrol agents who will agree with me. They've lost operational control on the southwest border. One chief patrol agent used the term broken arrow. I was on the phone there one time. He goes, Tom, I can't contain what's coming across. I'm lucky I'm catching 10% of it. The criminal cartels, knowing this administration caused this huge humanitarian crisis and overwhelmed the border patrols we discussed earlier, and whatever assets that's left on the border, left to patrol, the criminal cartels, you think 100 family units or 200 family units show up accidentally at the same place at a certain time? No, the cartels control that. Right. They'll send a group to one area, knowing whatever left on the border was seized to that humanitarian crisis, right? They have to go deal with that. They create gaps in the system. That's when they move the fentanyl that's killed 250,000 Americans. That's why sex trafficking is up 600%. The cartels, they create gaps in our system, and that's where they operate. And for the Democratic representatives up on the Hill saying, well, most fentanyl comes to the port of entry. That's just a bunch of garbage. Most fentanyl is seized at a port of entry because every vehicle stopped, and based on the CBP targeting system, which is law enforcement sensitive, and based on the responses to the questions, chances are they'll get secondary and they'll find some things. Between the port of entry, we're maybe touching 10%. Yeah. So if I'm a criminal cartel, I'm going to use a route of least resistance. I know my vehicle is going to be stopped at the port of entry. Will it be secondary or not? I don't know. But between the port of entry, with 70% of the agents off the line, that's where I'm going to move my product. I mean, it's not rocket science.
Just right over the open border, you mean?
Absolutely.